Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Velero community meeting and open discussion. Today is May 5th. Where did my Zoom go? There we go. Today is May 5th, 2020, and per usual, if you have anything that you want to add into the meeting notes, I'm going to share them in the chat there. And then I'm going to share my screen so we can go through the status updates. We have one discussion topic today. If you want to add in something else, please do so. If you want to just chime in throughout the conversation, please do so as well. Just unmute yourself. And with that, I'm going to share my screen and get started. All right. So for status updates this week, first off, we have Steve.
Yeah, the past week was mostly beyond reviews and the normal stuff, just trying to knock out a bunch of the smaller items that we had in scope or that have come up for 1.4. So I'll just go through them real quickly. So I updated all of our container-based images within the core Velero repo to the Ubuntu focal tag. We were on Bionic before, but focal is out now, so updated those. We had a CRD restore issue related to the unstructured converters that are part of the probably API machinery, where certain fields don't convert correctly. And we've seen this on the backup side as well, but we had another instance of it in the restore code, so made a fix there. I fixed another issue related to included, excluded resources where there's a potential bug where if they were unable to be resolved through discovery, you could potentially end up getting more resources backed up than you hoped to, or potentially having plugins run for more resources than you intended. So I fixed this. It was a super straightforward fix, but yeah, it's kind of a big impact. And then I also updated our plugin, basically the server code that we intend plugin authors to use to serve their plugins. Previously, this code would error if an unsupported flag was passed to the plugin server. And we changed this to basically ignore unrecognized flags. So this lets us easily add new flags in Velero core that get past the plugins, and plugins won't immediately break if they don't support these flags. So we can add flags in kind of a backwards compatible way. And then yeah, beyond that, just lots of PR reviews on everything else that's going on. So that's pretty much been it for me for the past few days.
All right. Do you have any blockers or anything like that that you need help with throughout the week?
No, not for me. I think most of the stuff that I've been working on is wrapped up. I do have one PR that's still open, the backup progress PR that I know everyone has taken a look at, but that will need to get finalized this week. But for the most part, I'm trying to review other open PRs and get our scope closed for so that we can ship the 1.4 beta.
Sounds good. Any questions, comments for Steve? All right. Next up, we have Carlisia.
Yeah, so I continue to work on the new backup store location controller. Everybody had a chance to review it, and it was very helpful. So basically, we have this loop that validates if the store is ready or if it's valid. So now I'm going to add the same process to the BSL create and update events. So we do that validation there as well and keep updating the phase for the location CRD. So I mean CR, so that we can use that phase value to validate when a backup is about to be created. Then that will be as up to date. It will be very up to date, not as up to date as possible. If we kept checking, we could have checked more than we're checking, but apparently there's a cost when you try to connect to the storage, so we don't want to do too much checking. And so I added also a validation frequency that the user can set up for each individual backup location. And so it can be set to 0, for example, if they don't want it to be checked for until they change their minds for whatever reason, which I think is it was a great suggestion that Nolan had. And yeah, that's it. So I'm going to implement the event stuff. But I was sort of wishing that you would go on 1.4, but I don't think it will be ready if we're going to ship on Friday. So that's it for me.
All right. Any questions, comments for Carlisia? Any blockers that you need help with this week?
No.
All right. Awesome. Moving on to Ashish.
For me, I've been kind of trying to move the ball forward with the CSI work. Gotten like a couple of PRs out this week or like the last week, mainly around cleanup on backup, deletion, and expiry. We want to clean up the storage snapshots when backups are deleted or like they expire. So I did that, and then I have an ongoing PR to sync or CSI objects into the cluster when Velero syncs backups into the cluster. So the idea is, again, like if the backups expire or anything or get deleted, we want to make sure that all resources that were created during the backup get deleted. So that is, those were the 2 PRs that I had last week. I've been doing more testing around the CSI stuff, making sure as I've been working on the PRs, I've been like testing other stuff out as well. There was one more thing that I noticed when we also store like the snapshot, the CSI volume snapshot objects into as part of the backup, and I noticed that we only store volume snapshot contents that are associated or bound to a volume snapshot. But we also want to store like dangling volume snapshot contents that may be part of a backup, just so that they are synced in and deleted whenever it is time. So I'm going to work on a fix for that.
And that's for the sync to object store.
No, that's when we persist the backup. Right. If you look at the code that I linked there, to make it clear. So here, just can just click on that here thing. So scroll a little bit up. So here we persist only volume snapshot contents that are bound to a volume snapshot.
Yeah, this is what I was talking about. Okay.
Yeah.
This is what I was referring to. Okay.
So based on what we discovered in the other dangling volume snapshot contents PR, we might want to sync everything or all volume snapshot contents that are part of the backup.
Okay.
So I'm going to work on a fix for that and get that done this week. Apart from that, I've been doing like PR reviews and getting closer to the 1.4 release. That's pretty much.
You want to talk about the certificate package as well?
Oh yeah, there's this other thing that came up where somebody was unable to talk to the GCP from their Raspberry Pi, from their container running on Raspberry Pi. Turns out they were missing the CSCert packages on their container. So somebody from the community put up a fix to install CSCerts as part of the container builds. in the Docker file, but unfortunately, we are not able to run the install step, install CSRT step as part of the container build. So I spent some time investigating that, and I think we know what the problem is, and we've not been able to work up a fix. So this PR got merged, and then our build failed. And that's where we had to revert this PR. So that's something that I did. So that's all about that.
All right.
I haven't had a chance to like work up a fix and like have that fixed for good.
Okay. Yeah, seems like a lot of comments here. So yeah, this is definitely something that we want to fix. All right. Any questions, comments for Ashish? Do you have any blockers that you would like some help with?
No, I'm good. Just prepping for the 1.4 release, like making sure we don't miss anything, especially with respect to documentation. So that's what I will also be kind of thinking about.
All right. Sounds good. Next up, we have Nolan.
Yeah, so the main thing I've been working on is this CRD backup PR. Siri, I don't want to talk to you. The main thing I want to do now is get a large sample size. The Elasticsearch and Kibana CRDs that are mentioned in the issue appear to be accounted for, but I want to get a larger sample set. The main thing I'm waiting for right now is getting Prometheus CRDs as mentioned in here. And then this morning I saw actually this issue is talking about some very old versions of the CRDs, but regardless, I'm going to go grab those later today. The current master of Prometheus CRDs works just fine, but in fact, those are V1 at this point, but we want V1 beta 1 versions. And even the V1 beta 1 versions don't have this issue anymore, but I'm going to go grab the older ones. If I might also go through old issues just to make sure we didn't miss anything. But the main thing here, I think, is going to be adding test cases, running through it on maybe a few different versions of Kubernetes. So the main thing I think that's left here is testing, just to be sure. Because I want to make sure we get this and don't have to do anything else with CRDs relating to this issue. So yeah, that's what I've got for that PR. Yeah, the rest of a lot of CSI reviewing. I need to finish up the describe output. That shouldn't be as involved as the rest. Most of it's just making sure we parse the stuff correctly. I may have to think about what we want to parse it off of, whether it's the volume snapshot or the volume snapshot contents. And then I don't have a whole lot else to talk about right now. I'm on community support this week. I'll be doing the mechanics of the V1.4 release. Steve's been doing a lot of it in the past, but trying to spread that knowledge around. So I'll be running the scripts and stuff. Carlisia and I will be on Crossplane's TBS YouTube series. That's a link to their playlist. I don't think we have an episode link yet So it'll be probably at the bottom of that. And that will be at noon Eastern this Thursday. As far as blockers, I don't think I have any right now. The main thing is going to be trying our best to get a beta release out by the end of the week for 1.4 and testing across lots of different versions of Kubernetes, particularly 1.18. The CSI works. The CSI work will only be usable on 1.17 and 1.18. Just want to remind people of that it's supported on 1.17 and above. And that's what I've got.
Awesome. You're so you were on Brett Fish's YouTube last week,
Yep.
and TBS podcast this week.
Yep.
Carlisia, you'll be there as well this Thursday. Lots of media exposure. Love it. This is great. Thank you so much for volunteering and stepping up and doing this. Really, really awesome job. For the 1.4 release, Nolan, since you're leading that, do you also want to do the blog post for it?
Sure, I can do that.
Awesome. If you want, I can add an issue and we can put that into the milestones.
Yeah, and something that just reminded me of, like, one upgrade step I know people will have to do is with the backup progress. Folks will have to upgrade their CRDs since there's a new field now, boot fields. So I know at least one thing will have to be updated to update your CRDs in terms of like mechanics of doing an upgrade, but that's something we'll probably be fleshing out through the beta. I don't know that we'll have full upgrade instructions done by Friday or whenever we get the beta out. So, but yeah, I can take on doing the blog post.
Awesome. Cool. Any questions, comments for Nolan and the beta release that's happening this week? Okay. Moving on to discussion topics. Carlisia.
Yes, so I took a look at the tilt setup that the cluster API team did, and I thought it was awesome, and I would love to do it for Velero. Wanted to get a check if this is something that we would want. I personally would love to have that set up for just myself. But there's, if I do it for me, I might as well do it for the project. So basically, we would check in the tilt file, and the end result would be that anyone could just fill in a JSON file with some variables, and that just run tilt up, and the whole thing will boot up and start running. And the way they did it, I was playing around with it some time ago, and the way and I was happy that I just figured out how to make it run. But it was very interesting, but it wasn't very practical, because the way I did it was building an image and then sending the image to the cluster, which takes some time. And we do have a way to develop locally just using the binary, which is much faster. So the way that Andy Goldstein set up for the tilt setup for the cluster API team, you will build the the binary based on the file that changed, and you specify what files tilt should be watching. And you build the binary and send it to the pod and restarts the pod. And that should be as fast, and Andy said it's pretty fast. It should be as fast as running the binary locally, except that you don't have to build the binary, start the Velero server. It will just keep running, and then you also have that pretty UI in green, red, as you keep breaking or fixing things that would just appear. So yeah, so I wanted to check if anybody would not like to add that, because I think we could also add to our documentation and be one additional way that people could it would be an easy entry to Velero development. At least I think so.
So I looked at this yesterday as well. The tilt cloud. I don't know if you're talking about this as well, or if you're mostly talking about local development.
No, I was just talking about local development. So the requirement for this would be just put up a kind cluster locally and tilt up, and that's it.
So I was looking at this, and I was wondering if the tilt cloud maybe could be used for onboarding new contributors and maintainers and things like that. Perhaps we can have a look at that later, but I think this could be one option to make it even easier. You kind of do pair programming, but with social distancing. This is really cool. So how would I get started with this if I wanted to do anything with Velero?
If you were developing for Velero and using
Yeah.
the setup, so well, we will have instructions, just like that documentation that the cluster API team has, and there will be a JSON file with some specific variables you have to fill in for your use case. And also you add like what plugin you're using. So you just add the provider name and we'll know what plugin that corresponds to. And basically, so you fill up that basic, very few things, run the command tilt up at the root of Velero, and that's it. It's sort of like booting up Octant. You just boot up on the browser. And then from then also you specify which files you want Tilt to be looking. Let's say I'm working with a very specific package. So okay, I would say, okay, just watch these files because we don't want it to watch the whole entire project. It's too much cycle. So I would say just watch over this directory. And as I'm developing, I will see in the browser the log running and changing, and also a visual cue of if I broke the server, for example, it would turn red. As you see, 0 logs will turn red, and as you fix things, it will turn green. Does that make sense? Is that what you asked?
Yeah. No, I think that sounds great. So, would you recommend using Octant in that setup as well?
I always recommend using Octant. Octant, I mean, that is really good to be looking at the log and seeing what messages you're triggering as you make changes. But Octant, you get to dig in through the value of things, this state of things. Different tools. Although you can also look at the log through Octant.
I was thinking maybe it could be an easier way to set up the dev environment there. So yeah, that sounds great. But those are just my thoughts. Anyone else?
Anybody thinks this is a good idea or not a good idea to add this? Because I mean, we'll have to maintain this for the Velero project.
Definitely seems useful to me. Yeah, I'd love to see it.
I agree, Carlisia. I think it's useful. And I'd love to talk a little more even about the Octant opportunities with the documentation with you.
Did she get cut out for everybody at the end?
A little bit.
Okay.
Say that again, please. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with the utility of it, and would love to talk more with you about the opportunities for Octant and the documentation on how to use this also.
Okay.
And I know Wayne from the Octant team has a set of notes on Velero integration with Octant. I don't know if they've talked about integration with Tilt itself though, but I do think this would be useful for throwing into our. I have no objections to putting this in our repo.
Cool. So I'll open an issue and I'll now tag it to myself because I'm really keen on digging into this, and I'll mark it with 1.5.
Cool. All right. Any other questions, comments, anything anyone want to bring up as a discussion topic for today? Okay. Then I think we're heading over to the contributor shoutouts.
Yeah, I can take the top two here and then other folks can jump in. The first one we have is from Jay Gridley, who had a previous contribution to the Azure plugin to add support for static storage account keys. So this is mostly relevant if you're not using volume snapshots, maybe you're using restic or just backing up the Kubernetes manifests and you don't want to use an Azure service principal. So this supports just using a static storage account key that you pass in as an environment variable through the secret. And so this PR here adds support for that for using restic with Azure in this way. And that actually necessitated some changes to Velero core for reasons that we don't need to get into right now. But anyway, yeah, thanks Jay Gridley for wrapping that work up. Hopefully that should be shipping in 1.4. And then the next one, just a quick one from Jones Paul 1525, who updated our AWS plugin to use a much more recent version of the AWS Go SDK, which enabled some new authentication methods specifically for the use case around STS endpoints. And don't know all the details, but appreciate the update there.
Nice.
Oh,
And then, yeah.
yeah, my turn. I added the next two ones. So two shout outs for Helm chart contributions. Douglas, it's his handle. He added support for adding secret environment variables, for example, for credentials. And Austin BV, he added documentation for a contribution that he had made in the past, but it's really appreciated that he came back and added the documentation for having separate providers. And the last one is not mine.
Yeah, that's from me. Hashed Dan, who I believe is also the host of the TBS show, works upstream a lot with CRDs. I believe there's a CRD repo, it might be github.com/CRD, that he owns. So he helpfully came along and provided some insight onto how CRDs work and also provided a review on PR 2490. So thank you for that.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you everyone for contributing. Thank you everyone for joining the community call today. With that, we're gonna finish up. We are giving you back 30 minutes, and have a fantastic rest of the week, everyone, and see you next week. Take care.
Bye.
Everyone.
Bye.